Hi, my name is Tendai Mungate and I'm from Compuling Systems. Today I'm going to be talking about unified communications. Some people may ask, what is unified communication? Unified communication refers to a phone system that integrates communication within a business. Unified communication is VoIP and video collaborated together. So I'm going to be talking about Cisco, as we are a partner of Cisco. In Cisco, we have Cisco Workspace. We have devices, networks, business applications, operating systems. So, in a nutshell, what can we say about unified communication? Unified communication is just connect, communicate, and collaborate. Are you in an organization? Are you in a business? We as Compuling Systems are here to assist you. Thank you.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Success Talks with Coach Mungate. Season 2 proudly brought to you by Compuling Systems, and I am your host for this particular edition, Coach Tendai Mungate. And this show is designed to inspire and motivate you with real-life stories of those people that have made it in life, and also to equip and empower you with the different tools that one needs to achieve success. Ladies and gentlemen, with me on the show today is an amazing woman. She is a corporate leader and a communications expert. Mrs Tsungie Munyeza, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Coach.
It's an honor having you, and thank you for agreeing to be on this show. Ms. Tsungie, to those that don't know who you are, please do care to introduce yourself to our guest today.
Okay, so Coach, I always define myself in 4 aspects. Firstly, around the essence. So who am I from the soul side? So I am a lover of life, deeply lover of life. Someone who is very conscious of how the impermanence of our stay on earth. So because of that, I am somebody who draws a lot of energy from the quality of life that I live versus the quantity, because I know it's not permanent. And I know in our discussion, I'll have an opportunity to develop that concept a bit further. And then the second thing, in terms of the genealogical side of me, I'm a mother of 3, a wife of 1, hopefully one wife of the 1. And I'm the second child in a family of 4, and I'm born to Dr. Mature and Mrs. Mature, Dr. Mature the late. And then the third version of myself is the career version. I'm a corporate communications expert. I have 14 years experience in blue chip companies, and I'm looking forward to even more in that particular field. I believe it's my field of calling. And then the last thing is around my the external side of me, the social side of me. So I've also positioned myself as a community leader who is pushing for impact, growth, and transformational related impact, particularly among young women and young men in my various spheres of influence. So I think those 4 quadrants pretty much define me as an individual.
Wow, thank you very much for sharing that with us. And please take us through how your journey started, especially in the corporate world.
So I actually began in the development workspace. I have an honors degree in sociology from the University of Zimbabwe, a home that I'm very proud of. And I developed, I think my corporate communication skills were really sharpened and were unearthed in this space, because I was the health and social services coordinator for a faith-based organization. And among the work that I did, I had to do a lot of reporting, events management, etc. And in that particular space, I think my niche around corporate communications was really birthed. I then moved into corporate in 2008, and this is where I started my fully fledged corporate communications career. I initially joined as a community projects manager, meaning I was mainly based in the CSR side, but then I evolved into the full corporate communications scope, and the journey has taken me to where I am today. And when I reflect back and think about, how did I really end up here, I think I'm really one of those, like many people, possibly my generation, who knew a set of careers that one could pursue. So you could either be a lawyer or a doctor or a teacher, but when I went into uni and then outside of uni, in fact, when I went into uni, there was a huge influx of NGOs. So many of us went into social sciences because we're eyeing jobs in the NGO sector. But then when I started working, that's when I actually started realizing which career path really suited my talents, or that really suited my passions. And then in reflection, since high school, in fact, since secondary school, I exuded a lot of PR elements. So I was the one who was doing a little class newsletter, posting articles. There was a newspaper called New Generation. I really wish that publication would come back. It was a very brilliant publication. It gave us space to write. I was into public speaking, into a bit of debate, into a lot of events management at school, and it also went into high school. And in high school, it became even bigger because I had such a strong proficiency in both the English language and the Shona language. So I was cutting across the board. And for me, that was the beginning of stakeholder management for me. So in hindsight, I realized that there's a lot about what my career looks like today that really started at the time that I was in school, in elementary school and in high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's an amazing one, as you mentioned, it started off in high school and look at where you are now. It's amazing. Please take us through, I'm sure this journey had some challenges, since you mentioned you started in high school. What are some of the challenges that you might have faced, especially being a woman in the corporate world?
I think I will say that I've been fortunate that I think I'm also in that generation of women. We have got a lot of policy support, and where advocacy for women's rights and opportunities for women are very strong. And our job has really been to leverage those opportunities in order to, use them to advance our own personal goals and career goals and family goals and all other goals that define us as people. So yes, indeed, the journey has had its challenges, but I haven't directly experienced a female-based discrimination in the areas of work. And in my current work, the current portfolio that I'm holding, the company has been very huge on diversity and inclusion. So really, it's a place that we've been very strong with. But other challenges really, and I'll talk about two challenges. One is a challenge, is a principal challenge, not something that is tangible that happened, but something that I discovered as a matter of principle. So having, when you start out, when you find your feet and you find your space, you work towards being really good and great in what you do. And because you're working in an environment that has other people, you've got a number of cheerleaders who are cheering you on, and it becomes very comfortable. And I think for me, my lowest moment in my career was the day that I discovered that comfort is actually a very bad thing. I had been excelling, I had been doing very well. I was working for a company that was doing very well. So many accolades, every other, during awards season, I'm at an awards event, I'm taking the limelight, receiving awards on behalf of the company. I think I was doing a great job on the various programs that I was initiating. I had so much leverage to do a lot of innovative type work, and I was really living my purpose through the work that I was doing. And it only dawned on me the day that I discovered that my name and the name of the company I was working with had become so synonymous. And I think it's a very dangerous intersection where you can't be separated from as a person and as a personal brand from the brand that you're managing as an individual. And it was a very sore moment for me, because when it really dawned on me, I realized that I had not purposefully built myself for industry and commerce in its totality. I had built myself for the purposes of this organization, and which is good, because you're delivering on the purpose of the organization, at the time. But it's not where I wanted to be, and I had really become comfortable. And it was, I think I actually went into a certain phase of depression and a bit of bitterness and a lot of confusion around why was I feeling so bad about being so good, or about being told that I'm good. But it had started manifesting itself on the opportunities that I was beginning to miss, because what it then told me was who I was becoming and what I was appearing in the world was not as deep as I needed to be for what the whole corporate sector needs. And for me, I want to be able to speak to the whole corporate sector. So it was a very low moment for me, and I always red flag that to a number of people, that when you begin to feel like this, and when you begin to have so many cheerleaders around you, it's a red flag. You need to stop, reflect, and look at how can you begin to get out of that comfort zone. Really, comfort is it's great to be comfortable. But comfort itself is a very stagnating situation. It's a very stagnating scenario in anybody's life. And then the second thing that I can point out, that this is something that actually really happened. So one of the key jobs of your corporate comms or PR expert in a company is to manage events. So I had been managing events for a very long time, very high profile, across the board type, corporate, media, some that are just, stakeholder, all sorts, and I thought I was now a well-oiled machine. But it so happened that at a certain event, things really went wrong. And everything was in place, but until just when the event started. So we had the vice president then, Vice President John Como. We had two prime ministers. We had quite a representation of the executive in that event. So it was really a high-powered event. So in the course of the event, the one person who had the responsibility of handing over the scissors to the guest of honor, it was a commissioning event, to cut the ribbon, disappeared. And how did she disappear? She went to where the station was, but thought she still had a bit of time to just powder her face a bit more. And by the time the delegates arrived, and I was outside of the venue, by the time the delegates arrived, there was no scissors. And, it was a funny scenario. And I went into a serious panic mode. I literally almost just collapsed, because of that incident. And a mistake was made, and it was just a scissors, but it was a serious dent on my very good and solid reputation of managing such events in the past, But what it taught me, and I think this is the key point, what it really taught me is that mistakes are going to happen. And I tried to think about what could I have done better. And going forward, I became responsible for those small things but high impact elements of an event, because the absence of a scissors became such a big issue, and even to myself, because how can you not find the scissors, So I became the sole owner of that particular process. It's important for us to empower our teams, but in such a circumstance, it taught me that lesson. Then the other lesson that it taught me the true lesson around emotional intelligence. I lost my wit. I literally couldn't stand. It was, and after the event, I just took a drive. I don't even know to where. And all I just say to myself, if I need to, I'll just put on the GPS and just, I just couldn't, put my head around what had really transpired. But what that also did to the team is that it also crumbled the team very, very deeply. Because I really did not know how to contain this. And I think this was the mother of all disasters ever in my career, because it really has a reflection on your planning as well in the process. So I think that was, the event. That was other events. Well, yeah, they did happen, but that one kind of stands out because of the magnitude of the event, and also the key lessons around emotional intelligence that I then learned. And I think so frequently, and this thing happened in 2012. Yes, and I reflect so often on that event. Each time I feel I'm losing my wit with my team, or each time that I'm in a space of emergency, I just reflect back to that incident, because I took out a lot of how I could have done better lessons out of that event. Wow. Yeah.
And I think the beauty of it is that you might have faced challenges, but you also took lessons from and which you are now using even now, which is amazing. Moving on, as you mentioned, you won some awards. Yes, please take us through some of the awards that you have won.
Yeah. So I don't call them awards, hey? And I know there's a bit of debate in Zimbabwe about awards. So I call them recognition, you know? And when people do debate about awards and whatever, I also just look at it from the perspective that, in Zimbabwe, I think we really work hard. And if somebody chooses to recognize you for the work that you've done, regardless of their authority, and I think I really actually appreciate the I see you element in that. And I think sometimes we've couched our lives around, being reprimanded or being rebuked for what we've done wrong. And we don't actually know that it's actually normal to say, well done, So I call them, I call them recognitions, because I think an award, they should be you get into the process knowing that there's a reward at the end of the day. But anyway, back to your question. I haven't been received as many as you put it, but I have been recognized by Woman Excel. I think that was my first big recognition for outstanding women in Zimbabwe, and that was in 2018. And then I was recognized by the Marketers Association of Zimbabwe as the first runner-up peer practitioner of the year for 2019. Then 2020, I received Public Relations Practitioner of the Year by IPRCZ. And then last year, I received Crisis Manager of the Year, again by IPRCZ. The rest of the awards that I've received are not in my name. They are accredited to the work that I've done. So yes, so I've received a couple locally by the various institutions like Marketers Association, Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, CZI, of projects and work that I would have done, IPRCZ as well. And this probably takes me to a point that I would also just want to share with young people around, if you're in corporate, it's good and it's important to build your own brand. But as you build your personal brand, build your corporate brand, the work that you do also requires that recognition. And I look back with a lot of pride. It may not be my name on that plaque, but it's my work that earned us that plaque, and it's something that I hold with a lot of regard around how I keep trying to balance out. So last year, for example, when I received my personal award, my company also received 2 awards for the work that I also did, which for me is a sense of satisfaction, because I am a corporate person, proudly so. Yeah, and having been able to achieve that for me is really icing on the cake.
Wow, wow, and congratulations on those awards. We are super proud of you. And I think it's an inspiration to the young woman watching, to the young person watching that, you know, when you work hard, you get recognized, and don't be afraid of getting an award. I think that was the message that, that you gave us. Okay, viewers, we are going to take a short break. Please do keep liking and sharing this particular broadcast. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and this is Success Talks with Coach T. Mungate, proudly brought to you by CompuLink Systems. And today we are in studio with Ms. Tsungie Munyeza, a communications expert and a corporate leader. Before the break, Ms. Tsungie, you were talking about your awards that you won.
We called them recognitions.
Recognitions, exactly. Thank you. Thank you. You were talking about the recognitions that you got. I think one of the key things that I've seen is that people have principles that shape them. You know, looking at the awards that you have won and the work that you have done, that speaks for itself. What would be the 5 principles you would say have shaped you and molded you into the person that you are today?
So we're talking about 5 principles. I'll try and really summarize them. So, you know, like I mentioned, I'm born to educationists. So one of the key things that I have been taught from a very early age, and I think I suckled on this principle, is diligence. Working hard with careful and steady effort. You know, with a steady mind, with a clear mind, consistent and constant and persistent effort, I believe diligence is a deal breaker. We are in a world where everything is fast, and personally, I'm also somebody who enjoys and thrives on speed of execution. But in the same breath, I'm also cognizant that I need to apply myself with a lot of diligence. And it has really reaped a lot of results for me. And, you know, when I talk about, you know, the lessons around emotional intelligence, it also enables, diligence also enables you to be somebody who can think clearly and act tactfully. So I think diligence is the first principle that comes to mind. And then the second one is clarity. Clarity of person, clarity of purpose, clarity of plan. So one of the things that I always found to have struggled with, particularly at the time when I was you know, at the young adult stage, when I was really trying to find myself, trying to find my person, trying to now define my future, I realized that on a number of occasions, I found myself gravitating towards being somebody who I was not, trying to be somebody who I would feel would be socially accepted, somebody who would be fashionably accepted. So as time went by, and I think the fact that I was working in a faith-based organization, I had a lot of wise counsel around me. It helped me to find clarity of person. When people acknowledge you for who you are as a person, you know, and in your originality, that allowed me to get a bit of clarity about I'm actually not bad because I'm different. I'm actually great because I'm different. And I think the next person is great because they too are different, you know. And then, you know, clarity of purpose. This is something that's an ongoing journey, but daily seek to understand what your purpose in the various disciplines of your life are. And this is why I define myself in those 4 quadrants, because in each quadrant there is something that I'm purposefully driving for. So if it is around my love for life, it's because I know it is not infinite. It's going to end at some point. So when I look at the quality of life that I'm living, and when I talk about quality, it's not about the type of food I'm eating. It's not about, you know, the car I'm driving or the house I'm living. You know, it's not wealth related. It is the depths of fulfillment that I feel when I'm in whatever space that I am. And so I push purposefully towards the things that give me fulfillment, and that when I look at my children, I realize it gives my children the same fulfillment. So the same thing even with my career, even with my family, even with my society. I have a clarity of purpose, and I seek that clarity every day, and I reaffirm it to myself that I've woken up today because I want to make it a great day for myself. I want to make it a great day for my children. I want it to be a great day for my company, as well as for my community. So I want that purpose to continue to exude. Then obviously the clarity of plan. So you may know where you want to go, but how to get there is very important. So also sitting back and thinking around what I want to do and how I will get there. And one of my mentors always speaks about the leading and lagging indicators. And they say focus on the lagging indicators, which is you want to lose 10 kgs by the end of the year. So when you look at the scale, you're looking at the leading indicators, which is I'm losing 500 grams, I'm losing 1.2 kgs, I'm losing so much per month. But you also want to look at the lagging indicators, which is, am I eating right? Am I exercising right? Am I drinking enough water? What are the critical behaviors that you're putting into play that allow you to then, reach your goal, and not only reach your goal, but also sustain that goal. So that clarity also is very important. We are number what now? Two. So clarity. Well, but clarity has got three things. Then I think the third principle is that start now. There are a lot of things that I wish I'd started earlier. I've realized, particularly in the past 2 years, that not only am I graying, I'm graying very early, but also that I've actually grown. I've actually become older, and it's a reality. And I don't think age is a curse. So I don't mind saying I'm turning 38 this year. I moved from sister, went back up, right, to my guru, went back up, to mama, went back up. So really, it's a reality that I'm not getting any younger. So if I think I need to do something, I want to do it now. Start now. There's a book that I read that says, start now and then perfect later. So a lot of the things that we do in our lives, we want to perfect now. We want to get it perfect. We want the fundamentals to be right. But you know what? Start now. And it's a very uncomfortable thing to do. But, when you ask yourself, really, what's stopping me? The answer is usually it's just yourself that's stopping you. Nobody. Yeah, your excuses will tell you, no, the things are not right, the economy is not doing well, but the reality is the only thing that is stopping you from getting anywhere or from starting is really you. I think for now I'll end it there. Those are pretty much like the biggest principles that are driving me at the moment, and that I think challenge me every day. When I wake up to do anything, those are the principles.
Wow. You have said a lot. And I was now learning even myself, when you talked about the clarity of purpose, clarity of plan, that's I think it's a book on its own.
I'll consider that.
Yeah, so thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I'm sure our viewers are being inspired by those principles. Moving on, you are a woman in the corporate world. And one thing that I've seen is that there's a tendency not a tendency I would say, but at times women maybe fear getting into positions in the corporate world. I don't know if fear is the exact word, but what would be your words of advice to a young woman, or even a woman even older than you or the same age as you, who might be, maybe there's an opportunity for them to get into the corporate world and they are hesitating? What would be your words to such a woman?
So for me, firstly, is that fear fuels failure, hey? So whenever you find yourself in a fearful state, you're courting failure. Because again, fear crowds your clarity. So because you're unsure, you lack clarity, So firstly, I think the corporate world is for everybody. I know we are in the era where we are really pushing for entrepreneurship, etc. And it's great. And I also do a lot of my own, I don't even call them side hustles. I'm also building my personal empire outside of the, the corporate world that I do, or the corporate world that I exist in. I'm on record having said that I do not believe in the concept that for a woman to become a CEO of a company, she must have formed the company. So I've mentioned this at a gathering where we had so many women leaders, and there were MDs, there were CEOs, there were, all these high profile names, but they were all these high profile names of their own companies that they founded. Regardless of where they are now, I believe that there's also space for women to make it to the top in blue chip companies, in what I call legacy companies. Companies that are turning 125 years old this year, there's space for a woman to head up that company. We don't get that often, and I think it is still a push that we need to go for. And it's exciting to have women taking up those positions. But at the same time, the number one stick is not for everyone, right? And I think that is the one thing that sometimes frustrates women in the process. We carry a queen bee syndrome. In the hive, there's only one queen bee. So the first syndrome, the one and only syndrome. So you find a woman will talk about, I was the first woman to do this, or in fact, we still celebrate people in those contexts. And I don't think in this era that's the right context to put, a first of anything, that the first woman to do this. So it means she's the first woman against all the other women, or to say, of course, it's a breaking new ground type thing. But I think that has then ingrained a syndrome in us that I have to be the first one to do it, or I have to be the one at the top, or I have to be the only one in the boardroom. And that is wrong. So for me, I think the cake is really big enough for all of us. There is space for everybody there, but the number one seat is also not for everybody. Personally, I also had this aggressive desire to become a CEO, but it doesn't mean all women leaders are CEOs. There are so many areas we are going to be able to influence the corporate system. I want to reach the echelons of my fraternity, and that is corporate communications. And there's a C-suite for that. There's a chief corporate communications officer role out there which can be occupied by someone. So whether it is within corporate, that in a legacy organization, in a Fortune 500, or wherever else, there is space for everybody. And it's not time for us to fear anything. If anything, in principle and in policy, there's a lot that supports us at the moment, and our job is to leverage that. The hard work is still on changing the mindset of the men and other people who we have in the organizations. That mindset still needs to change, where maybe, I saw a Harvard review paper that was claiming that we still find that women are underpaid more than, are paid way less than their male counterparts in the same position. So it's a mindset issue that is still yet to be resolved, and it has to be, we need to continue to push the envelope around that area. But otherwise, I promise you, there is space for everybody. And even if you want to then branch out into your own entrepreneurship, it's great to just pass through a corporate. Robert Kiyosaki says that the corporate has a system. And if you want to learn a system, you can go there, yes. But then when you want to now learn passion, principle, and purpose, follow a small business. That's where you will learn that. So if you just want to learn systems, how a large system can be run, join a corporate and learn that. Then if you want to get out and start making your own mistakes outside, at least you've got the base, of the necessary principles.
Wow. Wow, that was just powerful and enlightening. And I like that you talked about Robert Kiyosaki, because that's now ushering me into my next question of books. On this show, we believe in personal development, we believe in personal growth. What would be the 3 books that you would recommend a young woman or a young man like myself or anyone, that 3 books you would say one should read?
Can I say 5?
Okay,
not
that's
3.
fine.
So I also love, the nonfiction, also the leadership, personal development type books. So last year I came across a great author. I had never met this author before. Her name is Terry Saville Foy. She writes, her books are amazing. They are very short reads, which is great for my very busy schedule. So I've really enjoyed her books. The book from her that I read this year, last month, which is a cousin to another book. So they speak the same language. It's the 5 habits that successful people do before 8 a.m. And that book is a powerful book. I will recommend that jointly with Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. So I read both books. I was rereading Miracle Morning, and I also read hers together in the same. There were 2 of my 3 books in January. I think brilliant books. I could read her books over and over and over again. I also recommend Think It, Pin It, Live It by Terry as well. It's a brilliant book, and I think this one is very important for the young person, because it really talks. It's the ultimate vision board book. It talks about thinking it, then you visualize it, and then do your vision board. Excellent. I think it's a very powerful book. And then a more adult, big book, Good to Great by Jim Collins. That's the ultimate leadership Bible. Honestly, I'm yet to come across. I love John Maxwell, and I know they are colleagues with Jim Collins, but Good to Great is a fantastic leadership book. I would read. I keep listening to follow-up podcasts and YouTube videos on Good to Great. It's a brilliant book. It enlightened me a lot about where I should be taking my leadership, and it's one of the books that actually made me realize that the corner office is not the alpha and omega of success. And it has helped me to redefine what I call success as a corporate individual and as a leader in my fraternity. Then the next book that I'll recommend is Thrive by Arianna Huffington. It's a brilliant book. I will not say more. In this fast-paced world, when somebody so successful just tells you that you need to slow down, you stop surviving and start thriving. It's a great book that also reaffirmed my position around the fact that there's nothing called balance. What actually exists is integration. If you continue to pursue a balanced life, continue with your pursuit, good luck with that. But when you begin to tell yourself that the different facets of your life need to integrate, and you give yourself time to rest and recharge and rejuvenate yourself, that book certainly. And then I will recommend a book for entertainment, really. There's an author called Louise Penny. She writes fiction, crime fiction. And I'm not really a crime, even movies, I don't watch crime movies. But Louise Penny's books have got a certain beautiful edge to them. And they're centered around a Superintendent Ganache. Brilliant stuff, like the imagery and all sorts. It really takes me to the time when I discovered that literature was actually going to be a great subject for me in school. Brilliant book. Then locally, the last recommendation that I can give is Woman Excel. This one is for the ladies. Woman Excel, You Can Have It All by Edna Mkurajija. Again, it's for me, it is a great manual for reaffirming our capabilities to succeed in all the facets of our lives and to actually purposefully and intentionally drive towards that. I could go on and on because I certainly drown myself in books, but I think for now, those are the recommendations that I can give.
Well, thank you very much for sharing those books with us. And I think looking at the way you're speaking, the way you are oozing out all this information, it shows that you are well read. So I think this is a message to our viewers that it's good to read, guys. I recommend you to read. Yeah. All right. It's been amazing having this talk with you and learning from your journey. What would be your last words of motivation to our viewers today?
So I could say a lot, but I think the one thing that sticks out for me is that redefine success. I have read about people who died very miserable deaths with huge bank accounts, with a big estate, etc. And I believe that the moment, and in fact the day, that you sit down and define what success is to you, and without trying or putting any effort towards making that standard conform to a social standard or anything of the sort, that is your day of liberation. That is like your Independence Day. And that is actually your beginning of clarity. I have interacted with people who have it all because you don't even need to ask if they've got the money, because for them the money is so immaterial, because the depth of satisfaction and fulfillment that they have in what they have defined as their own success has allowed them to live this kind of very influential and inspiring life. I'm saddened by the fact that I've been hearing a lot about how suicide rates have gone up, suicide among particularly our around the males, and I find that sometimes, and this is really my thinking, I find that sometimes there's a huge pressure that is unsaid that comes from society, and that mentally we take so much to heart, and we live our daily lives believing that we're not achieving, and yet you really are. So I really think we need to define success in our own terms in order for us to live a fulfilling life. And because we are so impermanent in this life that we call life, I would want to look back from the grave and say I lived my life like it was in that box, it was mine, and be fully satisfied that it was my life. And so this is really what I think we should be pursuing, whether you are in corporate, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're still a student or whatever. Keep defining and redefining your success. And also remember that whatever you define today can change, So I'm reading Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, and in the beginning he talks about how he then went to Navy, and then he went to this, and then he did that. And by the time he was 37, he had done so many things. And so our ambitions are allowed to change. You can't say, I'm going to have to be a lawyer because at 10 I told my dad I would become a lawyer. Your worldview, if I would tell you, when I grew up, I wanted to be a nun. Because I didn't know what it meant, or, I just loved how so pure and, great they looked in their, habits. But I didn't actually know. So as you grow up, your worldview changes. And so your success model will continue to change. So allow yourself to change your mind or to change your position, but continue to ensure that it gravitates back to who you are. And once you do that, when you begin to have clarity of person, you have clarity of purpose, and you will have clarity of plan.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you very much for those words. Those are amazing, and I won't add anything, because they're just too powerful. So it's been amazing having you, Mrs Tsungie Munyeza, on the show. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this with us. It's been amazing learning from your journey. Viewers, this marks the end of our show, and thank you very much for watching this episode. This is Success Talks with Coach T Mungate Season 2. Proudly brought to you by CompuLink Systems. And please remember to follow us on all social media platforms. So it's Success Talks with Coach T Mungate. And do subscribe to the channel Dreams TV to get more of these inspiring episodes. So from me, Coach Tendai, our guest Mrs Tsungie Munyeza, and the crew behind the scenes, thank you very much for tuning in. Let's meet in the next episode.